pursuit of love is part of what makes us human. We all want to be loved and to love someone else. But how do we get to that precious space? You got to get your feet wet in that dating pool, of course. The trouble is, on a small island, those waters can be less of a pool and more of a puddle. Today, I'll be chopping it up with Julie Charles and Maurice E.K. Flanders. Both are radio personalities with strong views on the notion of dating, as well as what has changed about it over the last generation. Who benefits from dating more? What, if any, should be the end goal? Can you date non-exclusively on a small island? We'll try to tackle all that and more in The Real Conversation. And here with us today on the couch are EK, the real right, Maurice Flanders, and with me, the beautiful Julie Charles. Two people who I have known for actually quite a long time. I met them both when I was just a teenager. So today we're just gonna jump right in. We're talking about dating. We're gonna be touching on the why, the who, the etiquettes. We're going to be talking about all the misconceptions, the social aspects of this, the social media aspects of this. So I'm going to start first with you.
Ladies first, yes.
Miss Charles.
So, hi, everybody.
Help us understand where small island is concerned. What defines dating in today's society?
What I am seeing is persons hitting up persons in the DMs. Hey, then we switch over to WhatsApp. Hey, you may get an offer to go out for a drink or event or to meet up. But eventually, what happens is a fast forwarding of sexual relationships. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself in a relationship or a perceived relationship because persons would have seen you out with that person, assume naturally that's your girlfriend or that's your boyfriend. And so you just kind of tumble or fall into a relationship. Um, Dating is a process where you get to know the person. And so getting to know someone takes time. And it doesn't take 3 weeks and it doesn't take a month because we all know that, we put our best foot forward or what they would call your representative. And that person is the best imagery of you. And then the person who has the issues, the person who isn't in a good mood, begins to show up after a certain amount of time. Now, if I get accustomed to you as the happy-go-lucky, always happy, always fun, always laughing person, and then one day you show up in a mood or you show up depressed, I'm thinking, who is this person? All right. But that takes time. It takes time for persons to get comfortable. It takes time for persons to get to know each other. It takes time for you to really see the person you're talking to.
So less of a courting and more of a hookup culture.
Correct.
Okay. Ike, what's your take on this?
Well, I basically share most of the sentiments Julie expressed. I think over time, Western culture has over-sexualized the relationship between men and women. And I think it's much to the detriment of relationship because, like Julie said back then, the purpose was to actually get married, get into a union that, was beneficial to both men and women for the continuity of the family and the human race ultimately. But because of the hookup culture, as I said, they go straight to the sexual part of the relationship. And so once you get to that point, for men, there is no need outside of the sex to get to know anybody, to even be the best person that you could be. You just literally throw all that out the window. So I think the onus, and I hope I don't cause any ruffling of feathers here, but I think the onus got to go back to the women. Women hold the power and the key to sex, and men hold the keys to relationship marriage. So if women would make it less easy for men to get the sex, then I think, you know, it might take a swing back to where we once were, with the courtship and ultimately getting married.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that answer. I like both your answers. So you actually just touched on something that hits to what I want to go to next. You talk about it being shifted back to the women. So where do you stand on this idea that there's this patriarchal concept around where men stand, especially in the Caribbean, and this pressure for men to be more of a provider, a protector? Do you think that this puts undue pressure on the females to now have to live up to certain gender roles that some people might consider archaic?
Hmm. That's a loaded question. Let's start with the patriarchy foolishness. Um, I don't subscribe to that patriarch. What do you call it? Patriarchy.
Patriarchy.
Yeah, that's rubbish. In the sense that you want me to believe that everything in life with regard to the sexes is controlled primarily by men. That's a joke. Everybody knows that's obviously a joke.
So you're saying by default of being a man, this pressure is put on you?
It's a joke. We were taught from early that, women are sugar and spice and everything nice, and they're made with rainbow and flowers and all these nice things, and men were made with snails and frogs and puppy dog tails, and so that in and of itself don't put man at a disadvantage. Women are born with their value. You're born with that. You don't have to do anything. That's your value. Just being a woman is your value. You could create life. You're supposed to be a helper to a man. A man, on the other hand, in order to get a female that could carry on your legacy and raise your children properly, sustain your home, help you run your business, help you be successful, you have to first come polished. You have to first come good. That's how it ought to be. That's how it used to be. You have to come with something of value in order to get that value, to match the value. But like I said in the first question, once women start giving out the value for free, which is the sex, and access to your body, access to your soul, it then put men to not want to be their best selves, the best version of themselves, to invest in themselves, to acquire something of substance in life in order to be worthy of that value. So here again, I put it back to the females,
Okay.
right? So the gender roles, whether some people want to admit it or not, that's just how life is. That's just how it's supposed to work. You create a socket, you obviously have to create a plug to plug into the socket in order to get the lights and the cameras and the mics. That's just how it's supposed to function. If you want to reverse the roles, then you're going to go into chaos. And that is where relationships will go wrong, in my humble opinion. Because if you're saying that keeping a nice home and cooking a decent meal is somehow equated to slavery, something wrong with you mentally. Because you don't understand what slavery is. And slavery is far worse than washing up some dishes and cooking a plate of food for the person that is supposed to provide, protect, and care for you. That's the least you could do. We all know how washing dishes go and keeping a nice home, but it's nowhere close to slavery. And for a man, from my point of view, if I'm going to go out there and take on the world and do what is needed to provide for my family, the least that you could do for me is to have something to eat when I done take on the world.
Mhm.
I don't get my battle scars and what's that. That's just the least. So to equate that to slavery, I think is a cop out.
I understand. And that's an interesting perspective on that. Julie, I just heard EK touched on something. And as women sitting here, in all honesty, do you agree that society tends to put more value on women? It's like drawing back to his reference. Women are made out of sugar and spice and everything nice. Even in fairy tales, you see you have to kiss the frog for him to turn into the handsome prince. But yet you have to kiss the beautiful princess who is just laying there in a slumber for her to wake up. What do you think where do you think that comes from, and how does it affect the mindset of a younger generation right now and their outlook on dating, for how women look at each other and ourselves and how men look at us? Do we see ourselves as the more valuable of the genders when it comes to dating and relationships?
Boy, that's a tricky one. And the reason why I'm going to say it's a tricky one is because what I've seen and what I've observed is that as we go down in generations, so we have the baby boomers, and then you have Generation X, Generation Y, and you have Generation Z and Generation Alpha. As we go down in generations, the concept of dating and men and women and value that is assigned seems to be changing. In my generation, yes, sugar and spice and all that's nice. The princess had, I mean, these are things that we were socialized, all right? We were told these things very clearly. Um, we were shown that even in the way you were treated in school. Boys were easier to get licks than girls were. We would get punished, but the boys would get the licks. The girls would get talking to, or they would get lines. So, in that aspect, I agree with you that um, more value is placed on the woman, and more value is placed on the woman because she can bring your children. And so, something that can multiply is oftentimes seen as more valuable.
Okay, Julie, hold that thought. And we're going to come right back and pick up right where you just left off, because I want to hear the rest of this.
All right, so women are more valued. They're seen as the multipliers. And so you would put more value to things that can multiply. Um, there are some things that Ike would have said that I agree with, and there's some things that Ike said that I don't really agree with.
Like what?
He doesn't believe in a patriarchal society, but we do have a patriarchal society because the majority of persons who are in power and who wield power and who can make change through regulations, through law, through legislation are males. And so, um, while I do agree with him that the women need to take a little more accountability for their behavior and stop freeing up, you know, their bodies, their vaginas, and think about what it is you want from this man. Is it that you want a relationship? Is it that you want to just have a hookup? Or is it that you're looking for this man to be your husband at some point in time? Depending on what you're looking for will determine your behavior. But what I find is that there's not enough conversation between men and women about what each person is looking for. We just fall into things. And nobody wants to take accountability. The women don't take accountability, and the men walk out, well, okay, she gave me, I take it.
A lot of the times we're taught, if a guy asks you out, he's supposed to pay for everything right away. You have to go a certain amount of time before you decide that you're going to engage sexually with a man. We have people writing books about these things and trying to shape the mindsets of women based on ideas, and they're completely convoluting and they're muddying the waters when it comes to dating.
I agree.
And I will say this here. I've had the opportunity to live outside of St. Kitts, and culturally, I have seen some differences. For example, when I'm asked on a date overseas, usually the person shows up and they have flowers or something like that. They might open the door. I've never experienced anyone asking me on a date here and bringing me flowers or even opening the door. As a matter of fact, I went out on a date with someone here once, and I stood there waiting for the door to be opened for me. And I got a lecture about being entitled because those were my standards. So what about some of your experiences in the landscape the way it is now?
Oh, my Lord.
Just say you're getting that boat.
Oh, to honor. Of course. I've had some really, really horrible experiences. A few good experiences, so let me not say not. I've had experiences where I've dated someone and he was a consummate gentleman. Opened the door, brought the flowers, then we go out for dinner and he's flirting with the waitress. And I'm going, what in the what is this mess? And I mean, I am pretty forward, so I say, so why are you flirting with the waitress? Oh, I'm just saying hi. And then that causes me to think. And if you put me in a mindset where I have to go assessing what you just said to me, we won't have a problem with them. I've had situations where I've been asked out and I have to pay the bill, and that's fine. But I know that we ain't doing this again because we didn't have the conversation ahead of time that I'm paying the bill.
Yeah.
Now, mommy always say walk with Vex money. So I always got my Vex money, whether it's cash or card, I got my money.
Can I ask you a question right
Sure.
there? Why was it expected that you would pay the bill? Did you, not to get too personal, but did you happen to be the one making more money between the
Correct.
two of you? So that was an expectation that was
Correct.
put on you. So, Ike, what's the problem when we have that same expectation when it comes to men? Who is supposed to pay when it comes to dating etiquette? If you ask me on a date, am I supposed to pay for the bill for the first date, or are you?
Well, I can speak for me personally. If I ask you out on a date, I got the deal because I asked you out. All right. Depending on how that first date go, depending on how I view you, depending on the conversation, the little subtle things that I pick up, there might be a second date, it might not be a second date. Because I don't got to listen. I don't do much talking on the first date. I want you bang your mouth.
Okay.
And I gotta make notes. But because of the hookup culture where we got, right? Where everything is sexualized. I've been in situations where I said, hi, how you doing? You look very nice. I want to tap up. The begging start immediately. And as I tell you, men have to acquire their value. Women born with theirs. So if I have to work as hard as I do to get my money, that's my value. Because I work for that. So if you want me to invest my resources in you, there got to be a return.
And what is that return either?
The return has to be you got to be my woman.
Okay then.
I've been taking up my money to invest it in something.
Yeah.
Just so. That's like me going to the casino and gambling my money. So I think once women understand that and not take offense when a man say, well, okay, we going out on a date is to get to know one another. If we're going out as two mutual individuals with no expectations, nothing wrong if you pay for your food and I pay for mine. So have that conversation up front. But in the world that we live in, men are not encouraged to speak up on things that they feel and things that they think. I could do it now because I don't need to say it in my life where I could do that because I know myself, I understand who I am, so I can do that. Most men can't do that. Most men don't know how to express themselves. Their go-to expression is anger. And when Julie said that, oh, most of the world and the lawmaking is done by the patriarchy, who is those men?
Men and women.
Interesting.
Women.
That's an interesting take
Women.
on it.
Men and
Women have the minds, the heart, and the soul of the next generation. That is what women are responsible for. The man that I am, the value system that I have, they were instilled in me by two women, my grandmother and my mother. So they taught me to be that way. When you find a man a certain way, it got to come from somewhere. So what are we teaching the men? How are we teaching the men to be? And how are we teaching the women to be? Are we teaching our girls how to cater to a man, how to treat a man, how to speak to a man? Because most women nowadays don't know how to talk to men. They have to put a lot of them in their place.
And this goes back to
Yeah.
what I was mentioning earlier about just what we're being taught and these different ideas. And like Ike just mentioned, and you said, well, men and women. Well, the fact is, we would, in a perfect world, men and women are raising these children and are raising these men. But the truth is, the majority of these men are being raised in single parent households, usually being ran by a woman. And when we have to really dissect these things and get into the nitty gritty of them, you start assessing the woman's behavior, her part in it, because there's some people who think that relationships are 50-50. Well, if the relationship is 50-50, why wasn't the breakdown of the relationship 50-50? Where do you stand on that?
And I see this in a completely different light. We are speaking about one set of persons, whereas there are other sets of men who were raised by males and females and have the opportunity or the benefit of having both in their lives. And so I always believe that the way a boy is raised comes from the man or the male. Sometimes it may not be their father. It could be a male figure in their lives. It could be a uncle. It could be a cousin. It could be a close male relation. For example, I have a boy, and I am of the view that I cannot teach my son how to be a man. Straight up, I don't know how to be a man, and I can't teach him how to be a man. So when there are certain conversations that need to be had, like the other day I went to school, and they're saying to me that the third graders are having relationships, and that who have boyfriend and who have girlfriend, and the kind of conversations they are having. And I called a friend of mine and said, "Hello, you need to have a conversation with my child. This is not a conversation I'm comfortable having with my child. He may relate better to a male than he would to me."
Yes.
So I am not excusing the man's re- reflection or his impression on a child or male child. There are some instances where men are solely raised by females. There are also instances where men are raised by single parents and they have both male and females. And there are other instances where they grow up in a nuclear home. So we have to take all of those into context. Um, are men encouraged to communicate? No, they're not. They're not encouraged to communicate. They don't know how to communicate. And as Ike said, they communicate through anger. Just as women need to take accountability for their behavior and for giving up their value, men need to take accountability for not communicating what it is they want. All right, Ike. So I want to ask Ike a question.
There we go.
Let's go
Okay.
down the road.
Mhm.
What do you think the reason is for women to have a sideline?
Oh, yes, I want to hear this too.
Let me answer you this way. I have never met a contented woman in my entire life.
Single or
Single or married.
what do you define as contented?
You're always looking for something better. Something could always be better there. Something could always be better there. There's always something that could be better.
But isn't that a
and that's
part of life,
and
that
that's
growth
that
process?
no problem. That's their standpoint in practically everything.
Mm.
I mean, scrub the rug over there. Don't care how good you scrub it. You miss something. This ain't do, that ain't do. Always something.
Is it what is said or how it's said?
Married woman, you never know, you know. 'Cause you always come from an emotional standpoint, you know. Hardly ever logic.
So men are not emotional?
Men are emotional, but men, to me, in my humble opinion, are more emotionally intelligent. You'll never find most men wearing the emotions on the sleeve unless they know, unless they come from an environment where tell them that everything you feel has to come out your mouth.
You ask a man, are you hungry? Yes. What do you want to eat? One of two answers. What do you have? And you tell him and he decides. Or he knows exactly what it is that he wants. You ask a woman, What do you want to eat?
No,
Are you,
no.
or are you hungry? Yes. What do you want to eat? I don't know. You sure? Think about it. Anything. The man goes and gets us something. I don't want that. I'm not feeling for that. And then it turns into an argument, and then the argument goes into an emotional rant instead of accountability for the fact that the logical aspect of it just got lost because you couldn't simply answer a question. We're indecisive. So give me an example of what makes you feel like we are more emotional thinkers than logical ones.
The example that you just gave.
You
Like,
answer his
have you
question.
have you ever been in a conversation or a meeting where there's the majority of women and very few men? That meeting that take forever because every problem that comes up and every solution that's given, somebody somewhere in that room gonna find a problem with that solution, and the conversation goes back and forth and bouncing off the wall. Men, on the other hand, we come in certain men, not saying that all,
Okay.
and an exception to the rule doesn't make the rule. So not all, but generally, when we go, okay, the goal is to move that chair. How we gonna move it? We gonna take it from there, we gonna put it over there. Boom, we take it and we put it up.
So women can see the problem.
They can always see the
Men
problem.
focus on the solution.
The solution.
We focus more on the problem.
Right. A
Okay.
woman would come and say, I have a problem with you. Whatever the problem be. Something you said last week and it make me feel such and such and such. I'm like, what are you talking about? Man, remember when you said such and such? I'm like, you remember that there? Okay, no problem. When I said that, that's not what I meant. What you're feeling, that's not what I intended for you to feel. This is what I meant. Oh, I apologize. Women, Jesus Christ, they want to go on and on and on and on and on about how we make you feel and make that an issue. And no matter what you do, they don't ever lay it down. That stuff. We don't want to keep a long conversation. What is the problem? How can I fix it? Fix it, move on.
Instead of considering a woman expressing what she wants as nagging, why not just consider that as communication, depending on the way that she's expressing herself?
That's not proper communication. I have heard women say on numerous occasions, oh, I am all about communication. But how do you communicate? Communication is a sharing of information. It goes both ways.
That's why I said depending on the way that
And
she
proper
expresses it.
communication. Say exactly what it is that you mean. Use the words to mean what they mean, not what you think they mean. For instance, a woman will tell you, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. How the hell am I supposed to process that?
She has to explain what that.
Yes,
She has to explain,
what
but
that
most
means
times when you dig
to
a little
her.
deeper, you can't get a proper explanation. Like if you ask the question, what do you mean by that, babes? You can't stop cut me off and just let me just talk. No, but I'm trying to understand where it is that you're coming from. So I can't just allow you to talk. You say something, I have to interject to find out what it is you mean by that statement. And that turns into a big argument. Now, to me, from my standpoint, because I'm an intellectual person and I think differently. So when a woman says that to me, I take it to mean that I choose to love you. There are things about you that I love, but I'm no longer intimately connected to you.
I feel like when it comes to that there is a very romanticized idea around relationships and intimacy and the word love. And I feel like we sometimes need to depart a little from that romanticized idea of things because love isn't just about things being good all the time. What happens when there are problems in the relationship? What happens when the man can no longer hold up his end of the bargain? Do you leave right away? Do you try to work that out? I think that when it comes to this concept of love and I'm in love with you or I just love you, I think that people focus on that and it's very tunnel vision. We see it one way and there's nothing outside of that. If we're not happy today, then it's not love.
Mhm.
If I'm not getting everything I want, then I'm no longer in love.
I have a different concept of it because for me, in order for you to understand or to communicate with someone that you love or don't or not in love with them, you must first understand what love means to you. How does love present to you? What is your love language? A lot of persons don't know what that is. And so if I say to you, I love you, that is a love that is concrete. That is a love that over time has grown and has been nurtured. If I'm not in love with you, oftentimes when women use in love, it's that butterfly nonsense that they feel. But that's not love. That's not being in love. That's lust. All right? They see you and they want to jump you right away. That's lust. That's not love. I know of women just like myself who don't operate the way he's just
Yeah.
expressed. Um, what I find for me that is extremely difficult, and I straddle the fence when it comes to dating, is that the persons who are attracted to me are either seeing me as a trophy or they're seeing me as a sugar mama, which is like really, really weird. And so I find myself sitting on the fence looking down, going, oh, okay, oh, all right. I have lots of people in my DM.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing in particular that just nags me to no end. If you want to get me annoyed with you, tell me this. I have a family, I have a very demanding job, and on top of all of that, Julie got to do other things on the side of that. So very demanding work life, very demanding. Family life. If you say to me, oh, and I've had numerous men tell me this, it's ridiculous. Oh, if I don't message you, you don't message me. I'm putting more into you than you're putting into me. Listen here, you are getting an eye, that would get me annoyed. Why? Because it tells me or it's communicating to me that you are clocking me to see how often I check you first or I message you first.
Now, do you think that's insecurity on display, or do you think that that's interest on display?
Darling,
What,
on the
what, what
type
do you use the
of me,
word insecure though?
Well, because it can be either or. It could either be he is unsure about where things, not necessarily insecure about himself, but where things stand with the relationship. Because maybe that's a relationship that's
usually a
not defined.
relationship, but it's not usually a relationship. It's what I'm saying. You're talking to me in a DM, all right? And I try to be very courteous and respectful of people. If you message me and you say good morning, I might tell you good morning 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock might be the time I see your message because my phone is somewhere. Or I'm in a meeting, it's on vibrate or it's on silent and I did not see the message. So if you message me at 8 o'clock and I respond to you at 11, why are you getting the attitude with me? Why we got to hear, oh, if I don't message you, you don't message me. And usually I respond in a very non don't care kind of attitude that, okay. And if you don't message me again, fine. Keep your
But that's why I get by in our relationship then.
What is biting?
Yeah, well, invited.
When lad, this is children friendly?
You can be as candid as you need to.
When somebody looks outside of you,
So it's
How you get bite though? I need you to explain that.
you see what you just said?
Mm.
That you have a busy schedule, a busy life, demanding family life, demanding this, demanding that.
Mm-hmm.
I am the same.
Mm-hmm.
I go out there and I'm grind hard to provide for the people that I love,
True.
right?
Mhm.
And sometimes that requires your attention over here and to be focused as a man. Because if you take your eye off the ball as a man,
Yeah.
you get cut down. Good. So that's what I'm doing. And because the women are the center of attention, you messaging me good morning 2 days now. But Jesus Christ, you can say something too.
Exactly.
You haven't touched me in 2 days. What happened? You don't love me now?
Why do you always have to be the initiator?
Why you always got to come and initiate to you? Are you insecure? No, they're not insecure. They just want that reassurance. Right?
But there's so much way to reassure.
But we are needed. Like for instance, a woman
It's
told
like
me
the guy DMing you. He wants to
she
reassurance that
wants
you're still
reassurance that you're still interested. So it doesn't matter of being insecure. For instance, a woman can tell me, I need a business. I need to get this business started. And I might not respond at the point in time because while she's talking, I'm thinking, how do I get this from a woman? So I know I'm making, let's say, $10,000 every 2 weeks. I now have to go and make $20,000 every 2 weeks because I need my $10,000 to do what I'm doing here already. But I need an extra 10 in order to get that.
Right.
So I'm going to take on extra work to go and get that. While I'm doing that, Madam Home sitting down thinking, Ike got someone, Ike ain't paying me enough attention, Ike doing something else, Ike ain't messaging me fast enough, Ike ain't showing me no love, he ain't paying me no dates, but chick, I'm working on the thing that you say you need to do. That's my mindset as a man. So while I'm busy doing that, she's over here feeling lonely and unwanted and unloved. And there's always another guy in waiting to deal with that situation. This is a situation that most people in relationships have to deal with. And some people are unrealistic with their expectation. As a working man who providing for your family, it's not every time you would be able to put all the attention that your woman needs into her. And I have said to my females, when you tell me that you want something and you see me go out and get it, I need you to hold on the phone. I need you to stay focused.
Yeah.
Don't lose focus. You send me out to get this. That is what we're going to get to bring it back. So stay focused. Majority of them know stay focused.
But you gotta talk about the men who are not as hardworking as you are, who are not go getters, who are
Yes.
not out there hustling just for the
But
men,
But they
just for the
still
women.
want a certain
But they still
level
want
of
a certain,
woman. They want a certain woman.
They want a certain woman. They
The
want
one
a
who
certain-
cooks
yeah.
and cleans
But
and is submissive to them.
these men should not even be considered. And this is where the hookup culture muddy the entire water.
Money hates.
Because you got man with done been to jail, you got man who are gangster, you got man who are deadbeat father, you got man when I got nothing at all going for them, but they still could get joined up. Who fault that be?
So in this landscape where there seems to be so many different varieties of relationships, so anybody can simply put themselves onto any category, from monogamy to polyamorous relationships. What exactly is a situationship?
A situationship is when you're not really in a relationship, so like a side chick, or the other woman, and there seems to be a different set of rules that happens with a situationship.
So what is the end game then?
A lot of people don't have end games. Let's be honest and frank. A lot of
Okay.
people don't have end games. They don't have marriage in mind. They don't have partnership in mind. They don't have, you know what? I like you like me. Let's see how we can work together to build. We don't have that. There's another twist. The twist is that some women are told to fall in love with a man's potential. All right? Well, we passed that period.
No,
Now
are you well?
Yeah, no, we all.
Learning,
It's
though.
learning.
Sometimes
Without
it
all
requires
but
learning the things we
this
were
is the,
not
this is the
taught
problem that I
back
got with
then.
Western culture,
What?
right? In the world, you got more women than men.
True.
But the statistics show that 80% of women get impregnated by only 40% of men. So which means, are you having relationships and attracted to the
The
same
same
type
types
of
of men.
You understand? And that is what are you basing all your whole argument about men and dogs on.
Men are nothing. I don't
Whenever you
like
see a
that.
meme or you see some kind of statement, men are dogs, niggas saying this, niggas saying that, but it's the same type of dudes that you all attracted to. The bad man them, the thugs, the rude man them, and then I turn on and say, what do you call it? Toxic masculinity. That's crazy.
No.
But to come back to the point about the situationship, right? I don't know what that is. That's just fancy talk.
It's not.
But for me, once I have a relationship with you, sexual or otherwise, use no man.
Okay.
But the society that we live in, they frown upon it.
See, I don't believe in relationships. I believe in partnerships. A relationship to me, it is about relations. A partnership to me is somebody who is going to be there for the long haul, or at least that's the intention. So it still comes down to what we're taught and what are people's intentions jumping into dating and being honest. We always talk about honesty. But if you know that
can be honest.
if you know that you simply want this man,
No,
Why you can't be honest?
we
because
can be
society
honest.
don't allow you to be honest. For instance, a man like me,
Okay.
I don't establish. I could provide for myself, I could provide for multiple families. So I could afford to step to a woman and say, look, I have a woman here, man, she good, we live together, but I want you. That's
That is
honesty. I
honesty.
could do that now. But a younger man who ain't as established as me, can't do that.
Because I've heard a lot of younger women, especially, and when they criticize men and the reasons they don't want a relationship with them, it usually comes down to provision. He can't provide this for me. He can't pay my rent. He can't pay my car. And I don't necessarily think it's that, especially for Black men, young Black men. I don't think that Black men just cannot provide for their women. I think that the scope of what we're wanting and saying that we need has broadened. Because now it's not just he has to put a roof over your head, it's a specific type of roof.
You want a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle now that we want him to provide instead of the
most of them are asking
basic
for that.
necessities. Because most men can
We could do it.
live up to the task of providing the basic necessities. But have we, Julie, as women, become so, so entitled and have been so influenced by other cultures, by things like social media, that we simply are wanting much more than we actually need?
I think there's a section of the womanhood that has allowed social media to skew their thought process and what they think they need. They're not willing to go out and get it for themselves. They're expecting that a man is supposed to do so. On the flip side of that, you have women who are deemed independent, who can get those things for themselves, but then what happens to them in terms of finding a partner? That is the difficult part. The decision, and I'm coming back to what Ike said originally, the decision really is up to me. Am I going to give you the vagina or not? My decision. I determine that. I determine when you get it, how often you get it, if you get it, where I'm going to get it. That's my decision.
Do you
And a
think
lot-
that women leverage sex in relationships?
They do leverage sex, and I don't understand why. I don't understand why, because it is not a stock that you should be trading. Like, I give you this and you give me that. And I think that's where we come to, and why we have this horrific hookup session and hookup culture in the Caribbean, and in particular St. Kitts and Nevis. It's more transactional.
I do not agree
You
with that
can't
either.
withhold sex from a man and then say, oh, he cheated on me. Where you're expecting to go? Men are physical. And I think we need to, as different genders, understand each other and understand how we work. Best believe.
Especially
Somebody
when a
else
man
is
has
going-
just one woman. Where do you expect him to go to
Where you
fulfill
expect
those
us to
needs?
go? I don't ascribe to men being called dogs. That's unfair. But then you have songs that say bitches ain't loyal. All right? So is that true? No, it's not.
Yeah, it's true.
All men are dogs, and there are women who are loyal. All right? Blah. Anyways,
No, he did not. He said it's true. Not to
true.
women aren't loyal. Women and the B word are two completely different
But what is
categories
loyalty though?
of women.
just like you just said
Oh.
earlier, Clark, where you said
Uh-huh.
that you're outside hustling and you want your women to focus and not go outside. Them focusing and not going outside is loyalty. They're loyal to what you guys are working towards. They're
Good.
not giving away what it is.
The reason why I asked you that question is because I know that you know the definition. You need to teach it to the rest of them because they don't seem to understand what loyalty is. You understand? You remember you said in the earlier statement that, some people would leave the relationship because of sickness or whatever.
Mhm.
Men don't ups and leave relationship just like that, Jay.
They do.
They don't ups
So,
and leave relationship.
Some of them.
Just it takes a very long time for a man to decide what here. I gonna leave my wife.
I've heard
The Jew-
horrific. I've heard horrific
On both sides.
stories
on both sides.
on both sides. All right. So we can. I don't want to say, well, this doesn't happen, but it happens on both sides. We're not getting to understand. We're not getting to communicate. We're not getting to respect each other. We're simply saying, he look hot, I want to go with it. She look good, watch that one. I want to go with her. We fall into this thing and then we ain't like one another. And then we end up get a child and we still ain't like one another. But where we gonna go? If we don't know, they're gonna say the woman will get run through, as they would call it, and the man is a dog.
there's so much that we can touch on this subject. There is so much we can touch on this subject, but thank you both for coming today. This has been an awesome conversation on the topic of dating.
I thought I like it, yeah.
Fact of the matter is this: You attract what you put out there. And with healthy boundaries set, you stand a better chance of finding that most exclusive of things, love. We're curious to hear what you have to say. So let's keep the debate going on social media. You can find us here, here, and here. Remember to keep it civil, yeah? When you know better, you do better. And don't forget to be kind to yourself and to each other. Catch you next time.
Really hard.